Good morning. This is English 7 for Thursday, April the 9th. Last night you had homework for English on page 185. You did 6 through 10. So let's look at exercise. It starts on 184, exercise G, and it starts on 184, but we're at the top of 185. Okay, look at number 6. It says, the captain said that Leo and Tim are the best scuba divers on the entire crew. Okay, that Leo and him, that is a relative, and Leo and Tim are the subjects of our clause. So therefore, it should not be him, but should be he. Okay, number 7. For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand on the latter day upon the earth. Okay, that sentence is correct. Number 8, the Boswells and them went to the beach to see the glorious sunset. Okay, what do you think? Which are the pronouns correct? Well, the pronoun in this sentence is them, and it is incorrect. It should be they. If you took the Boswells out, it would be them went to the beach. No, they went to the beach. Johnny and Tim are praying for me when I was so terribly ill last week. Okay, what about the word him? It should be the word he because it is a subject of the sentence. Mrs. Howells and she taught we girls how to do embroidery. Okay, Mrs. Howells and she, those are the subjects. She taught we girls. Wait a minute, what is we? We is going to be the direct object. Girls is the appositive. Remember, the appositive always follows what it's clarifying. So the word we is our direct object, and it's incorrect. It needs to be in the objective form, so it should be us girls. Look at letter H. It says, in the following sentences contain adjectives used incorrectly. Cross out any incorrect words and make corrections where necessary. If a modifier is misplaced, then circle it and draw an arrow to where it should be. Now remember, adjectives are going to always describe a noun or a pronoun, okay? The man will not find it difficult to obey God's commands, whose heart is right. Something's wrong there. What is that? The commands don't have a heart. Who does? The man. So whose heart is right? That's in the wrong place. So circle that, and it needs to go near the what? The word man. So put an arrow to right after man. Remember, adjective phrases usually follow the noun or the pronoun that they describe. The use of less adjectives will improve your composition. What's wrong with that? It's not less, it is fewer. Remember, we use less when it's something we cannot count. We cannot count milk, so we say we have less milk. But we can count Skittles, so we say fewer Skittles, okay? So you can count adjectives, so we're going to use fewer adjectives. And by the way, that's true. You don't need a lot of adjectives in a sentence. You just need very, very good, accurate adjectives. This dwelling is older than any home in our area. There's something missing. It should be, this dwelling is older than any other home in the area. So add the word other, any other. Number 4, show them boys the way to their room. What's wrong? Show those boys, not them boys, okay? Them is not an adjective. The lining was made of a purple velvet fabric within the trunk. What's wrong with that? Within the trunk. The fabric's not within the trunk. The what? The lining. The lining within the trunk was made of purple velvet. It is gooder to die for something than to live for nothing. So what is that? Gooder should be better. Better. It is better to die for something than to live for nothing. Hanging on a hook in the closet I could see my new tie. Well, hopefully you're not hanging on a hook. Hopefully the tie is. So hanging on a hook in the closet should be circled and moved to after the word tie. So it would read, I could see my new tie hanging on a hook in the closet. Number 8, Dad bought a small car from a salesman in the next town that holds 4 people. Well, the town doesn't hold 4 people. It may be a small town, but it doesn't hold 4 people. What holds 4 people? The car. So circle that holds 4 people and draw an arrow to the word car. Arkansas produces more rice than any state in the United States. First of all, I did not know that was a true statement, but it is. And the sentence it should say, any other state in the United States. Number 10, Paul Bunyan was the most tallest man in American folklore. He's not the most tallest. We only need one superlative. So we're simply going to say he is the tallest man in American folklore. Look at exercise I. Using adverbs. Now, I really hope you're trying to do these and not just writing down the answer Mrs. Turner's giving you, because you're going to have to do this by yourself on your test. The following sentences contain errors in the use of an adverb. Now, remember, what does an adverb do? An adverb describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, and most often it describes the verb. What are the questions for an adverb? What, where, when, how often, to what extent, under what condition, or why. Now, in this, we're going to cross out the incorrect words and make the corrections. Or, if the modifier is misplaced, we're going to draw a circle around it and draw an arrow to where it should go. You can sure knit good, Mallory. Well, unless you're from the hills of Kentucky or Tennessee, you know that this sentence is incorrect. So what should it say? Sure should be surely, because it's an adverb describing how she can knit. You can surely knit, not good, but well, because well tells us how she can knit. Surely tells us to what extent, and then well tells us how. These are both adverbs. The persimmons taste real bitter. And persimmons are a small fruit, in case you don't know what they are, and they are very bitter, and they're not ripe, they're extremely bitter. Okay, so persimmons is a thing. So we want to say that these persimmons taste really bitter. How bitter? To what extent are they bitter? They're really bitter. Okay, so it's an adverb. Lila couldn't find nothing about the mongoose in this book. No, she couldn't find anything. Why? Because N' T is negative and nothing is negative, and we cannot have a double negative. Father told me on Wednesday afternoon we could plant the garden. Problem with the sentence. On Wednesday afternoon. You can move it, but where are you going to move it? You might move it in front of Father and say, on Wednesday afternoon, Father told me. And that means Dad said it on Wednesday afternoon. Or you can move it at the end of the sentence where it would say, we would plant the garden on Wednesday afternoon. So I don't know if Dad said it or if we're doing it on Wednesday. Make your decision. It can be put either place, but you have to correct the sentence. Number 5, of the 3 pieces, this composition sounds more beautiful. How many are we talking about? We're talking about 3. Since we're talking about 3, we're not going to say it's more beautiful. We're going to say it is the most beautiful. Elaine draws more skillfuler each day. One day she will paint good too. Well, she doesn't draw skillfuler. She doesn't draw more skillfuler. She draws more, how? Skillfully. Skillfully. Elaine draws more skillfully each day. One day she will paint good too. What's wrong with that sentence? Good is an adjective, so I need an adverb. So she will paint how? She will paint well. Look at the next one. That soloist sounded real good, didn't he? Well, wait a minute. It's how did he sound? He sounded really good, okay? And good is our adjective, but we're going to tell us to what extent was it good. It was really good. So really is an adverb and needs to be changed. Turn the page to number 8. I read that Lebanon had declared war in the paper. Did Lebanon declare war in the paper? Or did you read it in the paper? Okay, so in the paper's in the wrong spot. Circle in the paper and move it to in the paper I read. Or I read in the paper. Okay, but that in the paper has to be close to the verb read. Excuse me. Drake did real good in math. In fact, he was the goodest mathematician in our class. That's pretty poor grammar though. Okay, so Drake did really well. Well is how Drake did, so well is an adverb. Really tells us to what extent did he do well. He did really well, also an adverb. In math, in fact, he was the goodest mathematician. Goodest is not a word, okay? So that should be he's the best mathematician. Number 10. Julius Caesar did not suspect none of his friends of treachery. Julius Caesar did not suspect any of his friends of treachery. Let's look at exercise J. Phrases we're going to circle, okay? Then in the blank, we're going to tell if it's an adjective phrase or if it's an adverb phrase. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line to the word that it describes. Remember, an adjective phrase has to tell us which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose. An adverb phrase has to tell us where, when, how often, to what extent, under what condition, or why. Look at number 1. I read in the article that coconut oil provides significant health benefits. What's your phrase? Remember, when I'm talking about phrases, I'm usually talking about prepositional phrases. It could be a participial phrase or infinitive or a gerund. Well, not gerunds. So most of the time, we're looking for prepositional phrases, okay? This prepositional phrase is in the article. What does in the article tell us? Does it tell us which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose? No. Does it tell us where, when, how often, or to what extent? Yes. It tells us where we read. So circle in the article. It tells us where, so it is an adverb. So in the blank, write adverb. Now draw a line, an arrow from in the article to read, because it tells us where we read. Number 2, that man with the red hair is my uncle. What is your phrase? With the red hair. Circle that. What does with the red hair tell us about? It tells us about the man. Which man? The one with red hair. So that is an adjective. I thought we could proceed on the journey when the snow stopped. What's your phrase? When the snow stopped. When the snow stopped tells us what? When we could proceed. So when we could proceed is the verb, so that is an adverb phrase. Number 4, laughing and hollering, the boys jumped into the lake. Laughing and hollering, those are participles, okay? Laughing and hollering describes what? It describes the boys. Which boys? The ones that are laughing and hollering, okay? So laughing and hollering is our phrase. They describe the boys, which makes it an adjective phrase. Number 5, Mr. Lohman said on Friday our papers would be due. On Friday. On Friday is our phrase, and what does it tell us? It tells us when he said it. Because remember, adverb phrases are going to come real close to the word that they describe, said. So it is an adverb. Look at exercise K for clauses. It says draw a box around each dependent clause. And in the blank, write an adjective, if it's an adjective phrase, or an adverb. If it's an adverb clause, it says phrase, it should say clause. Sorry about that. We visited the Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park when we went to Alaska this summer. Okay, remember, clauses have to have a subject and a verb, but they're not going to express a complete thought. If it's an adjective clause, it's going to be introduced by a relative. If it's an adverb, it's going to be introduced by a subordinating conjunction. So what's the clause? When we went to Alaska this summer. Box it, put brackets around it, whatever. Okay? What does when we went to Alaska this summer tell us? It tells us when we visited. Okay, so it is an adverb phrase. Look at number 2. Chicago, which is the 3rd largest city, is the home of the Willis Tower. What is our clause? Which is the 3rd largest city. Okay, so put a box around it or put brackets around it. What does which is the 3rd largest city describe? It describes Chicago. Okay, since it's describing a person, place, or thing, it is an adjective. Number 3, when the construction of the Space Needle began in 1962, it took 467 cement trucks to fill the foundation hole. Okay, what's your clause? When the construction of the Space Needle began in 1962. What does that tell us? It tells us when it took. So it is an adverb clause. Number 4, whenever she travels to Hawaii, my sister always visits the USS Arizona Memorial at Pearl Harbor. Okay, what's the clause? Whenever she travels to Hawaii. That tells us what? It tells us when. Okay, when she visits, whenever she travels to Hawaii. Okay, so it is an adverb. Trail Ridge Road, located in the Rocky Mountains National Park, reaches an elevation that is over 12,000 feet above sea level. What's your clause? Located in the Rocky Mountain National Park. That tells us about the road, about Trail Ridge Road. Since it's describing a noun, it is an adjective.